Cardassians.
Cardathians?
Dash.
Kardashians?
Cards.
It's
like
pretty good.
Ass,
It's like
as in
pretty real.
asses,
It's
and Ians.
with
Cardassians.
the Cardathians.
This was before
It's lowbrow,
Kardashian
whatever.
was a thing.
Yeah.
I like it.
With the card. Yeah. As soon as I started, of course, there's T-shirts.
Hey, can you guys hear this like creaking? Listen for a second.
Yeah.
You can hear that?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll try to, because I got this like annoying table that has this like, but I kind of have to have the thing up or else I can't get my legs under the table. It's annoying. I'll try to keep it quiet.
Yeah, as if like there's no chance that I was the first person to make this connection ever.
No, it's just funny because I hadn't, because I haven't really thought of Deep Space Nine in that long since we're talking about it.
Oh, Deep Space Nine is so good, you guys.
As soon as someone says it, then you're like, oh, it's obvious, but it's funny.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so you ready to get started, Bucko?
Are we gonna do a still photo?
I already did it.
Oh,
What? Oh no!
I wanted.
How do you know?
I was laughing really hard. I'm always the one with the most posed face because I'm taking the photo, so I decided to.
Yeah, well, it's
prioritize
nice
me.
when you tell us.
Well,
Wait, can you see it?
it's on
Actually, no, I
Twitter.
can't see it now. How do you get to see it?
Oh no, I see it. It's on Twitter. I'm gonna retweet.
Twitter, right? All right.
Yeah. Bo has a
All right,
big
why are
laugh.
you guys being so? I have
I look-
such vanity about
I
the
look-
picture.
I look fine. Mike looks horrible. Worked out perfectly.
We've been doing this like
Bo.
2 weeks. What?
Well, at one point I was on their website recently, and I happened to scroll through and saw all these like various pictures. I'm like mostly of me looking horrible.
Well, don't sell yourself short. We all look horrible.
We all look horrible.
No, speak for yourself. I'm the resident heartthrob.
I like this world in which Crofton lives.
Me too.
Because it's just there's a feed on the site. Oh
Who's
look,
Yeah, well, look, that is about the worst picture of me you could have got. You couldn't get anything better than that.
Looks good to me.
I'm like, oh, this is what my face looks like. She got. Thank you for that.
It's fine.
Thank
It's
you.
fine. Stop
I
being
also-
vain, all right? You're here to record a show, not to be a model.
You've been giving us heads up, and I've been trying to look somewhat composed for that.
I know. All right. Well, next week. I'm
Too
sorry.
late now.
Now it's gonna be on the internet forever.
I don't know. You kind of look like you were stoned or something. It's got this cool sort of thing to it. No, it doesn't look bad at all. What the fuck are you talking about?
Shut up.
No, it looks bad. Okay, so
It's Mike
so who's
or
hosting?
Crofton. You're not helping.
Where,
hang
how
on,
do I
Hey,
just
we have
do that?
0 live viewers. Sweet.
Let me go down. How do I figure out who's hosting? Oh, it says Mike. So
It's
Bo,
Bo.
Crofton, Mike. It's Bo. Okay.
It's
Bo's
my turn.
Oh
Yep.
no, that's pretty much all. Every time it's Bo's turn to host, that's always how it goes. It's like, oh, it's my turn. Oh, I'm surprised and haven't thought about it, and now we're gonna pull something out of my bivet cleaned ass.
Okay, Crofton, did you say bad for realtors or bullshit?
I said, I think I said bad.
Okay.
Here's the thing. My realtor, since we did that episode, my realtor left 2 gift certificates in my mailbox and a note that, like pay each for $100.
Thanks for the thousands of dollars, dude.
No, I know. No, but to be fair, in no way did he need to do that. One's $100.
They all do that, and
no, they do not, because I bought and sold the house before and not gotten anything like that.
did you get some
right?
other shit though? They
What?
usually
No.
give you something.
Yeah, no, I don't think Mark Christie.
You probably
ever
just
gave
don't
me
remember because Mark Christmas is giving me a bunch of crap I didn't want before.
What did he give you?
A wine cooling thing. It's stupid. Like, I mean, it made me be. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, like the stupid shit they give you. Like, I got
gotta-
also a wine opener from one where you're like, oh, you celebrate your house, open the wine, and you're just like, just keep your stupid shit. I don't want it.
Oh no, I got $200 of gift certificates to places I actually care about, like the diner and Fab Baby
Sweet.
Gear.
Well, just think of it as a 0.001% return rebate.
Oh no, I know. It's just like you technically do not need to like? Is that going to be what puts me over the edge of being like, oh yeah, I'm going to refer? It's not going to be that.
I just have this.
I just feel bad.
Of
He's done
of you
something
opening
nice.
of you opening the door while he just dropped off those gift certificates, and he's like shining a pair of alligator shoes on your front stoop, and his Audi car behind. He's like, "Hey Crofton, here's $100 for you, thanks, buddy." He drives off down the road.
I just like he comes in. He's like, "Hey Crofton, here you go. Here's some great gift certificate." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." I'm like, "You may not want to listen to any podcasts late in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Hello, Bo, can you take that down?"
He's like, "Crofton, I'll never sell. Actually, anytime you want me to sell a house, I'll be there. I don't care what you said."
Yeah.
That's what he would say.
Like, the only bad thing about that is that you didn't mention my real estate. You have a friend that works in it. You should have brought me up so people know where to find me.
What?
That's probably what he would have said. Yeah, in all seriousness.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
He would have done a deadpan like that too.
Nah, sorry. I really didn't put my back into that whole thing. I was
No,
just like,
you
whatever.
did not. Although I did enjoy. I was listening to your There Will Be Dungeons. I did enjoy your voice acting on the Quiz Quaz.
Hello, adventurers.
It was very Yoda, but it was
good.
like. But it was just tweaked enough that it worked. I especially
and-
liked how you would gasp for air. It was really a stretch.
No, it was really
acting
good.
for
And
you.
Crofton, because I was telling Crofton about this. Did you enjoy the part where Scott Johnson was hemming and hawing about doing his thunderclap, and everyone's like, "Just fucking do the thunderclap." It was so-
Yeah, I did.
was pretty
is
funny
like,
'cause-
I really did. I also loved when Bo decided to make Varela on fire from Scott's fireball.
Yeah,
or
that was
whatever,
solid.
because I knew that was gonna really drive him nuts. He's like, "Oh no," or whatever.
I'm sorry.
One thing I've learned about playing with you guys is that you really, if something bothers you, I really need to lean into it and and continue.
Also, though, I definitely
good
was thinking
DMing.
again about the rolling thing, and I was just like, "There's fucking natural 20s dropping out of people's asses left and
I
right."
haven't
way!
heard-
No way.
There was a fail. There was a one rolled at one point.
There was 1-1.
And there was it's true. I've noticed big time that there's the one person I'm sure is rolling for real is Scott. That's it. That's the only
Yes,
one
I agree. And
Yeah.
I would say the one who I think's cheating the most is I don't know her name. It's,
Kristen is not cheating.
she's got natural. If you go back and count her natural 20s and think of the probabilities, it's like
I think she's not rolling actual dice. I think she's using a site for it, so it might be.
something's up
It's
because
not.
she's
There's no cheating. There's no. We're not gonna throw around accusations of cheating. I want to keep these friends for a while.
Well,
Please.
You almost did at one point. You said one line I really appreciated where you were like, "Oh, what was it?" You said to John Jagger because he pulled a 20. He pulled a 20, a natural 20 to recover from death at a very convenient time. And it gave him one HP or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't believe it either.
And you were
but-
like, you seem to have that information pretty quick, that it brought you back or whatever.
yeah, I thought that was fishy too.
No, but
whatever.
he's a studier. John's a rule studier for sure.
No, I believe that, but I mean, there was just a lot of kind of convenient things. I get again for sure. Scott is rolling legit. For sure, he's rolling legit.
There's
Everyone
gonna be
else,
like this
not-
e-zine that you start called conspiracies about There Will Be Dungeons. Join
It's
one
just-
man's quest to take down the most cheaty podcast, Dungeons and Dragons podcast. I know Bo denies it, but the truth is out there. They're cheating on their dice.
I feel like you guys should. Do you have your cameras on? I never watched your live stream.
Yeah.
There should be like a roll camera so everyone can see that dice go down. Because I'm like, oh, natural 20 again. I'm like, come on.
I trust
Come
people.
on.
I trust
Also,
people.
I'm thinking that because you may recall our last session of D&D where I rolled walking
You
6s and
always have
4s the
rolled
whole
bad.
goddamn
You have
game.
always rolled bad, though. You have bias when it comes to this.
You know what
kind
I
of thing.
found helped though is that I remember this from our first session when you were DMing us that I started recording all of my rolls and just putting them into a plus minus camp. Like if it was a coin toss to be like up or down. And it was like it definitely was negative, but then it started skewing back, and I felt like having that statistic stops your brain from being like, I have bad luck.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna do it again because it was really helpful to just be like, what am I actually rolling instead of just complaining about my.
Because depending on your personality, you might be like, some people, like, when they don't remember the wins as much as the losses just because of their personality, or vice versa. Like, Crofton would be like, I'm the best. I'd never have a bad roll. He doesn't. He selectively
he has
remembers.
bad rolls too.
And you
Not
might be
often.
more on the side of like, oh, every time you have a bad roll, you're just like, fuck, I was gonna do something cool and I can't do it. And it just
You know
bothers
what's funny is when you're playing because you want to win and you want good stuff to happen, you want your good rolls. But when you're listening, I was desperate for people to get ones, especially like there was certain when Scott was about to do his big big thing and everybody, or like, and like, I was like, oh, let him roll a one, or when at one point like Varel and the quiz quads are kind of like tight together and he does the fireball, I'm like, oh my god, just let him roll a one and let him blast Varel in the back. I was just dying for it. You want it as an audience member because Bo will come up with a scenario that led to like what happens following that one, whereas the 20s are just like, okay, they do something super awesome, the thing's dead, they move on, which is fun as the player, but as the listener you want shit to go wrong.
Yeah, there was. Anyways, I'm just saying, keep your eye on this natural 20s, Bo. You're like, it's for fun, Mike.
I like you, the way you support me on the show. You're like, I really enjoy the show. You do a good job, but the players are cheating.
They're
They're treating you badly.
You gotta rein them in.
By the way,
it's a good episode, for
Mike,
sure.
yeah, it was a good one. Mike made a funny reference to like the way Scott plays, which I think is super apt. Which is that like it's like three of the characters are doing a play and one of them is writing a novel.
It's like everyone else is dialogue driven. They're like, I walk up to the door and open it and go through, and Scott's like, Nash stands in the hallway. The light pierces him from behind. He remembers memories of his childhood, and the solar mines come back to him. He casts a glance at Hope, and she knows something's afoot. And you're like, do you say something? He's like, he says, I walk towards the door. It's like, it's got all the backdrop, and it's like, I'm like, it's not a novel. Just say something.
That's fine, but it's fine. People have to enjoy the game how they want to enjoy it.
I'm enjoying it. It's funny, but it's just like he's just like definitely doing a novel, and everyone else is doing a play. It's really funny.
It's fun. It is funny though. It is like
it's good. I
work.
really I'm enjoying it.
He's the only one that has interior dialogue, but I thought that comparison was really apt because he is like a noir character almost. Like he's like, I think about it. But sometimes my favorite points are when he explains to you guys what he's thinking. Like, so he's like, okay, so this is what I'm thinking here. I'm like, I'm thinking that Nash would be like, he's grown up in the salt mines and he's concerned about these things, and he's bringing you through like the internal dialogue of like, but so I'm trying to think like, would he make this decision? I don't know or whatever. I'm like, just make the decision.
It is pretty funny but I think he's also the newest player to D&D. It seems like
he hasn't played for a long time, so
he's doing a good job though. I mean, it's all fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
I find him hilarious actually, just due to how much he cares. He just cares so much. Like he's like, when they all wanted to make him do Thunderclap, like he's so determined not to screw anyone else over. I was thinking about like just as playing with him as a character, because he's like, these are four, if you think about them as characters, they're four people who met yesterday who were on some sort of adventure. And he's like, these are the closest to brothers I've ever had or whatever. And I just want to be like, I pickpocket Nash. I
mean, they can't all be Erasmus what's your Erasmus the dick?
No, Erasmus is cool, man.
It's Theo and Flashblade.
Like,
basically
Crawford's
every character Crawford.
I like Scott's character.
Flashblade.
I like Scott's character, but there's one problem. He doesn't play it like I would. I think he should. I think he should run into more.
Why are you an asshole to everyone?
No, nobody's an asshole. I thought John was really going to start screwing people, but no, he never did.
He's doing it sort of on the
He's got room to grow. He's got room.
I think so.
It's coming. I think people are getting used to playing D&D, and I think there's a lot of incubation going on right now.
I think, but to be fair, Bo, the first episode, I'm like, okay, I'm going to support Bo. I'm going to listen to this. I had a lot of time that week. I was at home. I managed, make it through. Then the second episode, I was like, okay, I'll just see for my commute how this works out. and all this, and then I ended up listening to the second one, and then the third one, I turned to Jesse at one point. I'm like, I think I'm just going to be listening to the show now. Pretty much, I'm determined.
Aww.
Like I'm into it now at this point, you know. So it's so you guys are doing something good.
I think it probably helps that we also can't wait to play D&D too. It gives us something to...
Tomorrow, it's finally happening.
Yeah. I want to shout out, Bo, you do a really good job on that show. I was thinking about all the stuff that you have to do, like just as DM, not just as DM, but like as like you talked about the dead air, because there is sometimes where they'll be indecisive or whatever, and like as a podcasting person, so you have to manage as a DM person, but also be mindful of the audience, and then do the voices for the characters and give them personalities. There's a lot that you have to do, and you really do pull it off pretty seamlessly.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm actually almost trying to scale back because that's my podcaster habit, is to fill air, but as they're playing the game, like I have to give them room to just sit there and stew and like... You know,
sometimes
a goblin stole your underwear. What do you do? And then just stand there, and if they don't know what to do, then just let them be quiet until they figure it out.
Yeah, as a player, I think sometimes it's helpful when because like keep in mind they're all working with very limited information, and so sometimes the indecisiveness comes from being like, this could be anything, and you feel hanging a bit. So I think it's good to feed them a bit extra detail. You're usually just nudging, you know. It's not.
Yeah, try not to hand everything.
No, I think it's a good balance.
Well, I'm working on it.
All right, I should get to an episode. It's getting late.
All right, let's do it.
Maybe we should do the episode about there will be those die rolls. I mean, we basically did an episode.
No.
I'm calling out hope for sure. Natural 20. I'm like, fucking bullshit. There's a couple of times I'm like, no.
Kristen's
no
really
way.
nice.
No, she's super nice and she's doing a great job. But I'm like, I don't buy the role.
All right, let's get started. That's fair enough. All right, I'm introing again today. Shit.
I can do it if you can't. I'm always willing to step in.
Excuse me.
No, let me do it.
I knew it. I knew that was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
I knew...
What? Okay, I think
Just do it boring style, Bo. It works for me.
Here, Bo. Let me help you. You're clearly going to rip off my concept as you generally do. Use Deep Space Nine characters because you're watching that right now. There, done. It's
already my idea. I was just trying to figure out which ones you were.
Yeah. Sure, whatever. I'm Cisco.
Frankie, you're Worf.
All right, here we go.
And I'm Jean-Luc
starting the recording. The show's starting. This is Good, Bad, or Bullshit episode. Wait,
It's true, he does.
Hang on. I've got it, okay?
It's probably going to give you O'Brien. No, Kiko. Was that her name? Koki.
Oh my god, I'm trying to start the show, you bastard. This is the third time. All right, episode 216 of Good, Bad, or Bullshit starts in 5, 4.
Be Cisco.
All right, hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast, the place where conversation is the foundation for higher thought. My name is Bo Schwartz, and I'm Captain Benjamin Cisco of this podcast. And joining me today is two special guests that are here every week, but they're still special. We got Michael Hodgins over here, the Miles O'Brien of our podcast, because he knows how to fix things.
Top of the morning to you.
Definitely doesn't talk that way. And also joining us is the ROM of the podcast. That's Crofton Steers. Crofton, hello. Do you know who ROM is?
I'm going to have to Google that.
He's Quark's brother who Quark constantly makes fun of. And this is how ROM talks. Hello, brother. How are you today? And Quark's like, you idiot! You didn't clean everything up on time, you moron. He's like, oh, I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, brother. That's you.
So I'd be Quark, I guess.
No, you are ROM.
So this is Deep Space Nine Star Trek talk. So we've already lost, I'd say, 3/4 of the audience. Gentlemen, before we get too far, I have to say this has been an arduous day for me. First off, I gave blood for the first time today in my life, and I almost passed out when doing it. They had to have like a nurse kind of look at me and stuff like
You're a
that.
cookie or whatever they do.
I
No,
gave
no,
blood
they do
today.
that
I'm
for
gonna pass
everybody.
out. Total rom.
Yeah, they, no, they do that for everyone. But I guess my blood pressure dipped or whatever, and my eyes rolled back, and I started passing out, which is not supposed to happen. So they have to hold on to me for a longer period of time. And then in the afternoon, like I'd had the root canal, which I may have mentioned on this show previously, massively painful. And so I got a
Sounds like you're
gold
bragging
tooth.
about it.
You got a
I
gold tooth?
Yeah, so I got a gold tooth.
What? You have a
It's
gold-
unfortunate. It's in the back, so it's like
Well,
can't
you
really
should get
see
a
it.
window cut out in your cheek, like cut out a hole and put
Get a little
window
diamond in there
Yeah,
too.
but it's cool. Like I got a gold.
Why
I
did
mean,
Is it cool?
He's like the dentist. Believe it or not, gold costs a lot more than other materials.
no. There's a lot of reasons.
Why is it gold?
A lot of which I ignored because I was too busy being in massive pain.
Right.
But they've been using gold for a long time, and like for the most part, the only replacement would be like ceramic. And that's if it was in the front, they would very encourage you to do that, but it chips so that if it's in the where gold does not. So if it's in the back when nobody's going to see it, they encourage you not to use the ceramic because it's also really annoying to fix if something did chip or whatever. But it was funny. I met the dentist and I had this little sticker on my shirt that says I donated blood today for the first time or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Oh, you donated blood?" And I was like, "Yeah." They told me to wear the sticker all day and to let people know because I could possibly faint again. And she's like, "Oh, I couldn't give blood. I've never given blood before. I'm scared of needles." And I was like, this is the same lady who stuck like 3 needles in my gums to do a root canal. She stuck a needle in me today. And she's like, "Oh, yes, I don't mind giving people needles. It's just getting them myself." I'm like, that is the worst.
She says that, but she's probably like, I've seen the terror and pain that I've caused these people. I know what a needle really does. Your experience might have been okay, but I've really, really torn people up with some needles. I know how bad it can get. And you're like, oh, God.
It's just funny because it's like needles are like one of those things where you expect that people are who hate needles just uniformly hate them. Like, and I don't like needles. That's partly why I'd never given blood before today. So if I see a movie where they do like an injection scene or whatever, and I'm always like, oh God, I really hate that. So it doesn't matter. Like if I'm getting the needle or if it's somebody in a movie, I'm just like, oh, I don't like needles. But she's like, oh, I'm cool with needles as long as I'm not the one getting
But I
them.
mean, like, you know, it's kind of a silly thing. Nobody likes needles. Like, it's just the people who say, oh, I really don't like needles are the ones who are just being wimps about it. Like, I don't say I hate needles. I'm like, I go get them. I do not like it. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, right.
I've had lots of painful needles, but I'm like, well, they got to give you a needle. What am I going to do? Run out of the room? Just like, all right, stick it in, damn it. And that's it, you know?
I just want to highlight for listeners that I've given blood today, so I am the most like I'm the nicest of the three of us.
I'm surprised you didn't make some comment. You're like, whoever gets my blood, whatever other diseases they have are going to be miraculously cured. Their IQ will go up 10 points.
They seem to be huge fans of my blood. Let me just say that. And I will tell you, the survey that you fill out beforehand is exhaustive. And some of the stuff, first off, it made me feel like I had a really boring life because some of the questions were really like,
no orgies.
Yeah, have you lived in France during the 1990s? I'm like, no, that's oddly specific. And then another one is like, it's like, do you own a pet monkey or have you ever played with a monkey in the past 5 years? And I was like, no. Again, very specific, but I wish I did have a pet monkey. So yeah, they were asking.
That questionnaire leads me to believe that you don't wish you had a pet monkey because you'd have some kind of horrible disease.
Maybe. I really wanted to be unhealthy because a lot of people were getting screened out left and right, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I don't have to do this.
The truth is revealed. You did a good deed under duress.
It was somewhat under duress, but for the record is A, I still did it, and B, well, I don't think there's any B. It's just that I did it.
B that it's your blood.
As a funny as I know this is going to be a long preamble, but Crofton kind of has this thing where you always say like how Andrea is like good at everything. That's my wife, and she kind of is. but Ed Crofton, so it's like he's like, I gave blood for the first time because Andrea gives blood every month and has done so for like 20 years. Like that. And she's one of those
50 days. 50 days is what you have to do.
Oh,
but like
well, whatever it is, she gives it every single interval, and she's also one of those a universal donor. So they're like, give us your blood, and she's good.
God damn, where does she go to do it?
I don't know.
God, man. Damn her for being so good.
Well, good for you, Crofton. You did do a good thing. Even though you almost died.
Speaking of doing good deeds, I think we need to do a good deed and debate a topic today. What do you boys say about that? Would you want to donate some of our intelligence to a conversation?
Yes, let's do it. Crofton, try not to pass out.
That I am short on blood, and also,
was there a point to the story?
Well, it's just that I'm not at 100%. I'm tired. I'm worn down. Okay. So, like, this topic's going to come out. I won't have necessarily my A game for it.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't mean to sound so snarky. I just mean we might have missed it, and we got really sidetracked with the gold tooth. All right, Mike,
let's do a topic. That's some fumey stuff. The topic today is entrepreneurship.
This is an interesting one. Do we have any entrepreneurs amongst us?
Are we because we run this podcast? Does that count?
I don't think you count people who make no money entrepreneurs.
We technically make some money thanks to our generous patrons.
That's true.
Yeah, thank you, any patrons, but nobody would call us an entrepreneur.
Do you think if we went to an entrepreneur workshop and told them the amount we made, that we'd earn a lot of respect and kudos? Probably not.
I think if 3 white guys came in and said, hey, we're running a podcast at an entrepreneurship place, they would be like, get in line. We have a whole room devoted to you guys. You know, like. But entrepreneurship, is that like I just associate that with sort of running a business, but it's more than that, right?
I think it's sort of like starting something. I mean, because you can drop into a business that that exists. You could buy a franchise for McDonald's, say, and run it. I don't think I'd call the franchisee of McDonald's an entrepreneur. Maybe some people would. I think I get the feeling like if you're an entrepreneur, it's like you have an idea for something, some kind of business. It almost doesn't matter what it is, and then you make that happen. I think that's kind of it. Like it's just like someone who's in business, some sort of start-up-y thing. It could be small, it could be big, but it's like a new idea, and they're like, pulling myself up by my bootstraps, and they're an entrepreneur all of a sudden. I feel like the term is bandied about as if like it's the be all and end all. Like being an entrepreneur, that's what small business drives the economy, and we want to enable entrepreneurs. Like I feel like in the kind of free market sort of capitalist system that we're in, everyone is like, you should be an entrepreneur, and it's just like I feel like the term is kind of loaded in that it's like you should be one. They are great, and I'm not sure that that's always true. Depends what the thing is.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur, Mike?
No, definitely not.
So, because entrepreneurship sounds to me like it has the word enterprise in it. Is that entrepreneur? No, maybe not.
I don't.
As long as this doesn't switch to Star Trek.
No. It's not a Star Trek thing. It's just.
But I think you're in the right.
To me, it sounds like it's a little bit more than like opening a corner store in your neighborhood because there's a need for cigarettes, and then there's no convenient place to buy it. So now you're making money as a corner store person. I don't know that it's that. Unless it's maybe we can speak more broadly about it, but it's like to me, it's about finding. I guess maybe I'm just trying to be too esoteric about it, like finding some need, like. Yeah, why is like? Well, would you say Elon Musk is an entrepreneur?
Yes, but look, here's the deal. I think that
So
there's
then I
a
guess the
giant
cigarette
spectrum
guys,
to it.
too.
Yes.
Right? Like there's a
Yeah.
giant spectrum. So like I do, unlike Mike, I do believe the person who gets the franchise at McDonald's or has the corner store is an entrepreneur. It's just it's at a much lesser level than, you know, a high level entrepreneur. And I think it's entirely related to the amount of risk that they take on. It's like a risk reward framework. And I think that that's why it's so rewarded by society. So you get people, entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and that's a key thing because unsuccessful entrepreneurs, people who go, you know, bankrupt or whatever, they're not like they're not necessarily thought of or in a positive light or given any thought at all. Whereas the successful entrepreneurs are like, wow, this person risked it all and it paid off or whatever. They took, because other than an entrepreneur, what are other means of making, you know, making yourself get by in society or make money or whatever? And often it's like a salaried position, a position in an organization that is already successful to a certain extent. The risk to you personally is it's much lesser, you know. So I think an entrepreneur is somebody that goes out and tries to start something. And takes some level of personal risk to do so, and that level of personal risk can range, you know, astronomically. Like somebody can put up their house and all that sort of stuff to get a McDonald's franchise that may not work out for them, or you know, like you get these rich entrepreneurs, like multi-billion dollars or whatever, who are just like, here's a startup, here's money for a startup, here's money for another startup, and they just invest in a bunch of things, and it's a bit like throwing darts at a board. But they have so much money that there's very low risk to them, but they're considered successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think, because I think still what part of that, I think the key point is like, it's you have some kind of vision, and I think that's what differentiates an entrepreneur from a small business owner, because a lot of people will define themselves as, I'm a small business owner, and like if I think of like, say, some of the contractors I've had in my house to do work. I got an electrical guy, and I got like an HVAC guy that came in, and both those guys are small business owners, you know, and they're doing their work. I would not call either of them entrepreneurs. They don't have any kind of vision. They work in an industry which is kind of built on small businesses, and that's just sort of what they do. They're not like reinventing it, making it easier. They're just like chugging along, getting another job. And a lot of small businesses, I think, are just small businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like the thing that differentiates it is, saying this, reiterating myself again, is having a vision too, where it's like you see there's an opportunity, or you feel like there's a gap somewhere. I can fill that, or someone hasn't put two and two together here, and there's a business opportunity there. I know there's something I could do there to make some money or bring something new to the world. And I feel like that's the entrepreneur, or that's at least the myth of the entrepreneur, that's what they do. I think a lot of it is just, as you say, if you have a lot of money, there's a lot of ideas around, and a lot of them are good. And if you have enough money to just kind of try and fail at a few of them, one of them might go well, and it's like, hey, great. But most people don't have any money and have to beg and borrow, you know, in like these horrible shows like Dragon's Den, or I think the American one is Shark Tank. I hate those shows, incidentally.
Well, I do know, like...
But those are like ones where entrepreneurs are trying to get some cash from like people with money, and they're basically begging and pleading about their idea, and then, you know, that's how it is for most people.
Some of those people have started to set up systems, like they've taken ideas and implemented it like on a small scale. Like, think of like just a ready example is my sister's actually an entrepreneur. Now that I think about it, she has with my mom, they started a little mom and daughter little business called Paw Parade, and they sell cat toys and dog toys, and it's proven to be more successful than anticipated. You know, you do like a little project, and it's just the two of you, and maybe you see $50, and you're like, oh, that was a nice hobby, but they're actually turning profit, and not anything to live on, I think, at this time, but you know, they're setting milestones and goals, and things have been getting better and better, and they've been successful in a way that is meaningful. And I think that's like the start of the process, is you find a need and you find a very small way to fill it, and that gains momentum to a point where next thing you know, maybe you are running a business that has a staff essentially that can sustain workers. So
And what's neat about that is in when you're telling that story, I'm immediately feeling positive towards them and to entrepreneurs in general. And you're just like, wow, that's fantastic that they did that. Maybe both Mike and my point about like maybe they had a vision that, to Mike's point, maybe they took financial risk as to my point, but either way, they made something happen. And I think that now we're in a society whereas entrepreneurship is being streamlined in many ways with the digital economy. So you've got sites like Patreon, even like you look at like these YouTube streamers or Twitch streamers that are like, they're making money, but the entire ecosystem has been created for them. So in a way, it's like they're bringing something to the table, maybe something different, maybe not, but a lot of these frameworks have been created by sort of larger capital E entrepreneurs, and that's why I find that there's such a scope to this, because you have entrepreneurs like your sister and your mom who are like who are at fairs and stuff like that, who are selling products that they made and all this, and they definitely are that. And then you have like Mark Zuckerberg or something like, who's was an entrepreneur in another domain and that sort of stuff. And in the end, most of the giant businesses that exist are in some ways, started by an entrepreneur. There's this movie with Michael Keaton about the creation of McDonald's, and like how McDonald's was like essentially, there were these McDonald's brothers, and they started it and had essentially one location, and it was really popular, but they automized this food process. So like people are used to waiting for a really long time for their food. And Michael Keaton's character essentially played, I guess, the entrepreneur who couldn't believe, well, like, it's weird because he didn't come up with the idea, but he definitely saw the concept of like expanding the idea. So that's another type of entrepreneur, right? Like it's, you may not have an idea for something, but you have an idea of how to take something that's successful and get it to a larger audience, So there.
Yeah, I sort of think that there. I mean, this is sort of interesting because there's so many ways to define this stuff, and I feel like there are, like that when you describe that Michael Keaton character, that there are some people say like those people are like business development people, and there are people who are very skilled at that. Like, we'll take your business to the next level. You hear this kind of stuff a lot, and Bo's sister and mom, who kudos to them. It sounds like they're doing an awesome job. But I feel like when Crofton pointed out about things like what did you say the site was? Oh, Patreon. So Patreon, or say like Etsy is another one where people sell stuff. And I feel like the entrepreneur is like the person who is making crafts or whatever, and they go to the craft show and they see all these people and they're like, hey, people like this stuff. And then they're like, they make Etsy. And then that person is now like, a billionaire. That's the entrepreneur. It's again, connecting the dots. So something like Patreon, be like, hey, there's people out there that want to support people who are doing things like this podcast or any podcast or art or whatever, want to support them and would. And someone's like, I should make a website. That's like the entrepreneurial spirit. It's seeing those, like connecting those dots and then going from there. And I think that's sort of what differentiates it a little bit. But we've been defining for a long time.
I think at the baseline, they're still finding a need and filling it with a service or a product or something, right? Like just to be as reductive as possible, whether it's an internet-based solution or some literally shoveling your kid and you're shoveling people's laneways because there's busy adults around.
Right, but
work.
like, okay,
like,
let me jump in because I was thinking of like an example. So it's like the kids shoveling the driveway. It's like, like people. So some kids start shoveling the driveway. It's like, hey, $25, a driveway, does this in his neighbors or whatever. Maybe there's one kid that does that. Maybe there's another kid who's like starts doing that and says like, hey, there's a lot more driveways than I can shovel. Gets his friends at school, say like, hey, I'll pay you all $20 and I'll go around house to house and get the thing. And then he's got a computer programming friend. He says like, hey, if we get an app for this kind of thing together, you'd be like, that kid's an entrepreneur and the other kid's just sweat equity in it. And there's value in both. Sure. And I was thinking, there's other examples.
I would disagree. Like I disagree with most of all most. Like
See, well,
as
like
I
this,
said
again, this
early
is,
on.
and I've heard other examples like this. You know, where sort of like say someone like you could go out and collect cans and bring them to recycling places and be like, you're taking initiative, you're making some money off some stuff. Then it's like if you did this enough, and then you're like, man, I'm like, if I just refine this product, I could sell it for more value. And you start like melting down plastic and melting down aluminum, and then you're like, I can make stuff out of it. I think it's that really exploding something is really what an entrepreneur.
Well, I think that's big E entrepreneurship, but like I said, I think there's a massive spectrum, and I think that people that just start a business are entrepreneurs.
So for you, it's all business. You have a business, you're an entrepreneur.
If you start a business, be it a small business or a large business, and you are the one that starts said business, then you are an entrepreneur.
I own rental properties. That's a business of sorts. So I'm an entrepreneur.
I mean, you're finding in my analysis, there's a need for housing in a certain area. You bought the property that people need.
Took the financial risk.
And
made the modifications to the house. I would consider you a small E entrepreneur.
I think it's a stretch, but I'll take the compliment.
I guess I think the thing is
the fact you think it's a compliment, and I understand why you would.
I'll be a bit facetious, but
is a testament to like the way that entrepreneurship.
Yeah, you are an entrepreneur. Yeah,
but
perceived.
Also see here's
I've always thought Mike is in little ways too
because you are playing within this. Like I've never operated I've done a non-for-profit thing, but I've never seriously operated tried to operate a self-sustaining business or meet a need in that full way.
Well, I guess for you, like, 'cause I always think when you were in Kingston and you worked at that
that's
theater,
probably
and then
closest I've been to it. Where I started, I wanted to do so in university. I wanted to see the plays I wanted to see produced, and not the crap they were putting on for the majors, the fall and the spring majors at the university. And I happened to have gotten a job at a local struggling theater that had just opened up. And because they weren't paying me money, I was like, well, there's still a need for good theater in this town by students. Like, yeah, right. But, I started my own company. I mean, I didn't register. I didn't do anything. It was just a company because it was an idea, which at the end of the day is all a business is a couple of ideas that you slap proprietary, like you.
But you had actors, and you put on a play, and you charged entry fee.
We hired actors we didn't pay them. We took on volunteer actors and volunteers to put the play on. We charged the public for it, and the money basically went to the rights holders, and like they went to the theater because I agreed to I think 20% or 10% a ticket would go because it was getting unused. So you'll take some of the money, theater operator. And that's like nothing, 10 to 20%. It was a steal. And I volunteered my time. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't count as a business because I made no money. I don't know. It was like,
so here's the deal. And I was thinking more about Mike's combo. Having a rental property is not necessarily entrepreneurial.
Oh, he's backtracking now.
No.
He's not talking about you having a rental property.
Modify your opinion is definitely
I guess I know what he's going to say. It's possible to have a rental property that isn't mean you're in business.
Exactly. It's once you have multiple, you're taking on, a sizable amount of risk. Maybe you've incorporated or whatever, and it becomes larger than just having one rental property or rental cottage or whatever. And again, sites like Airbnb have enabled a lot of this stuff. Now, to talk to Mike, and that would be a capital E entrepreneur, whoever came up with Airbnb. But to say only the person that came up with Airbnb is the only person that's the entrepreneur, and nobody that uses it is.
There's lots of other ones too.
Right. So that's why I think that there's different shades. Now, to Bo's point, though, I think that volunteer stuff is not necessarily entrepreneurial. Now, I'm not saying that Bo's entire example was based on that, but if you're not entrepreneurial is about making money in my mind, and it's not about setting up a not-for-profit to a certain extent, even though that entrepreneurial spirit could potentially be applied to that. I wouldn't consider somebody is running like a committee of volunteers as an entrepreneur, right? Like they're benevolent. There's probably other terms for them, but entrepreneur seems to be heavily associated with capitalism. And honestly, I've taken in the positive implications of it. Like when I hear that word, when somebody says that, oh, this person's an entrepreneur, I automatically am like, oh, that's nice. That's a flattering or a positive thing to say about them. And like, it's not that I'm trying to pick holes in that, but I do feel that it definitely puts them in a higher caste, if you will, than people that choose to, like myself, who choose to work at an organization in a sort of salaried position, who have chosen essentially security over risk. And maybe they deserve to be thought of that way because they're courageous enough to take that step. But it is something that has always bothered me about the high level that we consider entrepreneurs in society. I'm not sure if fairly or not, but.
Well, I do think that like that, this idea of entrepreneurs being like, these are great. This is great that they're doing this. I think that's a little bit written by, because in capitalism, making money is what it's all about, and if you do that, you win. And I feel like a lot of the popular narrative is written by the winners. So I feel like if you see yourself as an entrepreneur and you've been successful, you're like, yes, that's what it's at. I'm not some schmuck who took a job, even though there's a lot really positive to say about someone who works a job like that. That's probably adding more to the fabric of the world than an entrepreneur who develops the Boogie Bass and sells 50 million, copies of it or whatever for people to hang on their walls. Like, that person was an entrepreneur. It's like, whatever, people need to work jobs. But I feel like they kind of put it on a pedestal thing, I think, is just tied with kind of economic growth, consumer capitalism, which I think all those things, I would be like, all those things are not good in my view. And so therefore, is the entrepreneur good? And I think it's like, it's been so pushed into us that yes, entrepreneurs are good. And I feel like ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably someone who's like, I want a lot of money, and usually the people who want power, want to get ahead, are usually people who are less afraid of risk, or they crave the thing more than the risk deters them. Yeah. Ultimately, what they want, I mean, I think a lot of them will portray themselves. You're muted, Crofton. I see you yammering.
Oh, sorry. It's just a quick question, Mike, based on that. Don't you think, though, that some of them are ones that instead of like generalizing and saying they want money, don't you think that, like, it's safe to say maybe some of them just want to do something that they love or are in control of, as opposed to I've always thought that's why they go there. Not necessarily like the easy money is probably going with a sure bet that's safe. They're not going that way, right?
Well, that's not. But there's no money in that. In having a salary job, like if you're thinking of the grand scheme of thing, if you want to be like someone like Donald Trump, you rich guy, you'd never have a job because you're never going to get to be like. It's like, for me or you or any of us, we'd be like, hey, it's a good living. You get a decent job with good benefits. You're going to live a good life. I have leisure time. I'll do what I like. But if you're someone who wants to drive a Ferrari, or you want to live in a mansion, or you want to fly around in a helicopter, you need to be worth $100 million. And you're never, ever going to get that working a job, period. So anyone who's going to get rich has to be an entrepreneur. And they're like the kings of the world in this society. They're like, they self-aggrandize themselves. And so I think, but ultimately that's what drives them. And you say like doing, want to do a thing and be in control. And I think that is also tied with this kind of A-type personality who wants power. It's like, yeah, they don't want to work for someone because they think they're too good. And, like oftentimes you see with entrepreneurs, I feel like they'll say like, this person got this business going through like force of will. They just like did it, even though it seems crazy sometimes. And I feel like that's kind of the art of the con man too. It's like convincing people to give you money for startup and having kind of no shame and almost like a psychopathic kind of like drive where you use people as you need them. And I mean, I'm painting a wholly negative picture. It's not all that. But even someone like right now, Elon Musk is like the entrepreneur du jour, who's like, he's doing all this awesome stuff. And everyone's like,
planetary travel. He's trying to solve planetary travel so we can get around the world in 30 minutes.
Everyone loves this Elon Musk, but don't forget he got rich from PayPal. It wasn't like he was like, I'm gonna turn the car electric. I feel like he was an entrepreneur who probably like saw an opportunity. It's like, let's make it easy for people to buy shit online. It's a boring idea, but it was an opportunity, and he became a billionaire at it. And then from there, I grant him full credit that he does have a vision and he wants to do positive things, but he's a billionaire already. Thank God there's a few of them who want to do good stuff with their resources. I think they're the minority. I think most of them are like, hey, like look at Steve Jobs. He was worth $1 billion. He didn't give fucking money to nobody. He just wanted, everyone loves Steve Jobs. He was not a nice guy. He gave no money to charity. He sat on a big pile of money. That's it. You know, at least people like Bill Gates or...
Yeah, he didn't give anything?
No, look it up. Steve Jobs is not a nice man, really. He was just like, he was a visionary for making money. You know, it's really, he revolutionized the world, but as we all know, this stuff all comes with a grain of salt. Like, smartphones are awesome. They're also bad in a lot of ways that, you know, is highly documented right now. But they made him a lot of money. They made Apple a lot of money. Is it made humanity better? I don't know. I think the jury's honestly out on that. But it was a business opportunity, and he made money, and that's what an entrepreneur does. And I'm a little bit split on actually whether that's always. It's sometimes good, it's sometimes bad, and I think a lot of times it's bullshit. So I don't know where I'm going to land on this.
Yeah, but like, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one? Like, I mean, the idea is that entrepreneurship is profit driven. It's like business is profit driven. Because if it isn't business, it's a public program. It's a community program, right? Ultimately.
But I mean, like, yeah, I suppose so. And I guess people say like innovation and progress is driven by people who take risks and who see the opportunities in the gaps, right? Or who see the opportunities of what's to come. Sure. Again, people like Bill Gates, you know, who's in the right place at the right time and sees, you know, is able to take something that's emerging and really capitalize on it. It's funny that term, he's like, capitalize on this opportunity. It really is kind of like loaded. It's really about like, now's the time to go all in with your money, and you're going to see dividends.
They're capitalizing on the good fortunes that happened to them, but they weren't the only people doing what they were doing, right?
Like, you know, I've mentioned this before, you know, so even all the stuff tied up with innovation and progress, like there's such a thing, there's this term called the progress trap. And a good example of it is nuclear weapons, where human beings get better and better at warfare, and now we have the bomb, and now we're like, oh shit, like let's rein it in because we're about to kill each other. And I think that the problem with like constantly exploiting opportunity for advantage is stuff like you get unforeseen consequences, and it isn't always better. Just because an opportunity can provide money and people will like it and want it doesn't mean it's better. And for me, the whole like Silicon Valley social media tech thing, I'm really like of a mixed mind about it. I don't know that it's made the world a better place. A lot of people would say 100% it has, but I think more and more people are like, it hasn't done what people said it was going to do in a lot of ways, and it has very specific negative outcomes. But has it made those people a ton of money? Has like everyone been on Facebook? Has made Facebook very, very rich? Has it made anyone's individual lives better now that you're spending 2 hours of your free time on Facebook instead of whatever you were doing before Facebook existed?
No,
and I think it's an opportunity, right?
But I think that's the same as like there's always going to be that. Like that's like it's like saying Henry Ford was an entrepreneur, created the Model T and made it so that his employees could purchase it. Cars have made tremendous amounts of pollution. They've caused tremendous amounts of carnage. They've been used as weapons of war. There's been, drunk driving. There's all sorts of things sort of associated with cars. But it was an entrepreneur and an innovator that essentially pushed that forward. Was that worth doing? Was it not? It seems like far back in time, but to compare it to like the Silicon Valley stuff of very recent times that we can remember in our lifetime is different, but it's the same deal. You come up with something, a big new technology. There's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, and maybe that's that progress trap that you've been mentioned. But I guess I didn't really think about it in the same breadth is innovation, like entrepreneurship. I always thought about it as somebody, like you said, like making money and trying to get rich or trying to do what they personally want or care for or not have a boss. Like I always thought about it that way, but I definitely did not really think about the innovation angle. That these folks are literally the people that are pushing society forward. Like, yeah, Elon Musk may have made his money on PayPal, but now with Tesla and SpaceX and all this sort of stuff, he's working on, like he's still trying to be an entrepreneur or is an entrepreneur, but in a different field, pushing society forward. It's just less of a financial risk for him, or he has to have backup. So in a way, we need these folks, and like any types of folks, I guess there's good ones and there's probably not as good ones. Like there's entrepreneurs that have literally made things that are probably wholesale bad, and be like, oh wow, I have a way to take these two drugs and put them together and make them super addictive or whatever. Or like,
it's funny. That's a hilarious point, because that is something that happens in the drug, like with synthetic opioids. Apparently there's a constant, and these are entrepreneurs. Drug dealers are arguably excellent entrepreneurs. They're like, hey, there's an opportunity. People want drugs. I'm willing to operate outside the law. There's a lot of money to be made, and they become multimillionaires. They're super successful entrepreneurs, and they are entrepreneurs exactly the same as anyone else. They happen to operate in an illegal sphere, but that doesn't make them any less entrepreneurial. The risk they take is greater than a legal entrepreneur, but they happen to do something which destroys lives. And so we look at them badly, but if you're just talking about entrepreneurship, they're dead on. They're as entrepreneurs.
And it is funny because I'm sure I've seen it in a movie, but the whole branding where like, some drug dealer ends up at a party or something like that. And like the audience, at this point that he's a drug dealer or whatever. And somebody says to him, hey, so, what do you do? And they'll be like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And it's played for laughs. The idea being like, yes, technically he is, but he's also a drug dealer. So if you call it that way, like entrepreneur is also a flattering branding, I guess, to be used for a lot of these positions.
Yeah, I think that's part of to me, that's part of the bullshit of this whole thing, is that it is a flattering overlay, or because some entrepreneurs provide new ways to do things that we all like. But I think a lot of people, just use that term to be like, yeah, actually, I bought this cheap land in nature to dump toxic waste on. No one was using it, and there's no regulations in this place. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. There's tons of entrepreneurs who do exactly that kind of thing, and you're like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, look at them, they're doing all this stuff. And I'd say, this is the problem of constant growth and expansion is it just never ends. And I think entrepreneurship it's so focused on driving ahead. It's never focused on stuff like, is it better? Does it make the world better? They don't care. They're like, does it make me money? And I would say for people who start an NGO instead, or who work as public servants or something like that, they may in fact focus on things like, is this thing going to make the world better? And if it is, then I'm going to devote my life to it. I think an entrepreneur doesn't have that. They're just like, is this going to make me a shit ton of money? Then yes, then I'm going on. And we put these people on a pedestal and be like, just because they make a lot of money, and we place the people who are rich, in Western society as like, we should all want to be like them. And I mean, I do not want to be like them, but our society says you should want to be like them. And I mean, I might be in the minority, but I don't want to be rich. It's not something I desire.
There's a lot in our society that points to, I mean, it's one of our cultural things. It's like when someone, like this happened early on when I first started podcasting, but it still happens now, just less so. It's like, oh, you podcast. Oh, like, you any good at it? Like, do you make money? And it's like, no. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's not really worth your time. Like, yes, every person gets lucky at doing a thing, but what's the point of doing it if you're not making money? And I think that's where, like, there's this sort of game playing with entrepreneurship, because in a way it's like, it's a highly speculative thing. Like, you can set out to try and solve a problem that you see, but you can ultimately fail at it if no one's willing to pay to pay for that business. Like, you are searching for a business that works, And you're doing so, I think, for the thrill of the hunt or for the compulsion itself in a weird way. You know, they always talk about how, like, top-tier business people are kind of ruthless and insane. You know, like, there's something about them that they're not like normal people because they don't look at it like, I'm gonna do this thing and it will only be worth it if I get a result. Where it's not the reward that's the reason. That's, like, employee thinking. The reason to find, like, to do these things is itself. It's like its own purpose to find it is what feels satisfaction or derives pleasure from doing it, right? Like, ask a painter why they paint, then it's not because they're like, I want to be like Michelangelo and I want to have 10,000 million followers. Like, there's just like, I like painting. And I think business people who, as you said, there's this weird veneer with business people, like, they don't talk about it in this way where they're just like, you know, they brag and they have money and they just talk about their ideas because maybe they're, you know, they're not quite right. But ultimately, I think the people, like you talk about Steve Jobs and stuff, they just do it because they want to do it. Like they have this idea, like, who was that guy they were talking about? But someone who's like, there's this person, I was watching this thing, I think it was Penn and Teller's bullshit. Something about food. The person responsible for modern food, like, the fact that we can sustain enough food for a population right now is thanks to, like, some people.
Oh, the Green Revolution.
Yeah. And
yeah.
like, we never think about that stuff. And maybe that guy's rich or not, I don't know. But, like, it seems like that person would have set forth, like, shit, we're gonna be out of food. Let's fix it. And they came across a solution where no guarantee of solution could happen. For now, maybe it's not a great one. That's for another show.
And that one is interesting. I think that guy actually was a scientist, but
true. But that could be the case. Like, the person who came up with an atom bomb was probably a scientist.
Well, yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, that was an example of progress trap. But I would say, like, we talked with this guy before. You remember, you know, Pharma Bro? This guy,
Sir Nekus or something.
The guy who bought
Yeah, Martin Shkreli.
There you go.
Guy,
the guy who jacked up the price of the drugs.
Yeah, and it'd be like, there's an entrepreneur. He was like, he got into hedge funds, he managed money, he got money, he's like, there's an opportunity. Look at this drug. I can buy it on the cheap. People need it. I'm gonna jack it up, and my shareholders are gonna be happy. And, you know, especially when you get into the entrepreneurship of public, and I feel like this is one of the whole problems with market economy. It's like you only care about your share. Once you get to that level, if you have shareholders, it's like you're doing well if your shareholders are up. It doesn't matter if you fucking murder someone. Like, it's like if the stock is rising, everyone's happy. And I'm just like, this is not good. This is, for me, it's like they're not doing it for love of the world or passion. They're doing it because, like, I want money, and there's opportunity to make money, and I'm going to take it because if I don't, someone else will. It's that kind of like fight, like
definitely
the king of the castle, fight to the top, and I get there.
But
first.
some people, yes, like, and if you're focusing on, like, the Steve Jobs or the Martin Shkreli's, yeah, and that's exactly right. I do 100% agree. But I don't think you can take that brush and label it on entrepreneurs. In fact, most of the people that I know that are low-level starting out entrepreneurs are people, again, that want to be their own boss, that have something that they, you know, that they feel passionate about, that don't want to be doing, like, a 9-to-5 for some other organization and that sort of stuff. And some of them are money chasers, and there's some that end up, like, in situations like that. But, like, the Bill Gates or the Elon Musks, they're a type of entrepreneur, a big entrepreneur. And then on the other side, you got these guys, like the less savory characters. It just goes to show you what a like, entrepreneurs are people. Like, that's what they are. And some of those people are going to be good people, and some of those people are going to be bad people.
Well, but I think all of them are a type of person, because most people in the world are not entrepreneurs, like most. So, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be in a certain type of population. And then, I agree, there's good ones and bad ones. I'm just about ready for verdicts. I don't know what you guys.
Yeah, I feel like
Same.
I feel like this is tough because since I'm not an entrepreneur, I don't, you know, like, it feels like a door that's closed off to me. Like, I can look at what they do, but at the same time, I'm like, is there ever going to be a moment in my life where I conduct myself in such a way?
Well, listen. Okay, like, we were asking about me who has rental properties. And am I an entrepreneur? And Crofton was like, oh, well, yeah. At first he was yes, and then he was no. And I'd be like, ultimately for what I like, the reason I own rental properties is for my own financial gain, and
Yes.
to get that,
You're
and to
more
get
of the Martin Shkreli entrepreneur.
to get that, and I do this because I want freedom from work at some point. But to do that, I took financial risk. I have a lot of debt compared to a lot of people, so I've taken on that risk, and I've taken on the debt, and now I have. At some point in my life, I'll be able to sell these properties, or they'll be paid off, and I'll have some kind of income. I've done that for my own benefit. The difference between me and an entrepreneur is that, like, I stop because I'm like, okay, I have 2 rental properties, and I might have an apartment in my current house when I'm done. That's enough. That's enough, because it's like, if those things get paid off, I can live a pretty comfortable life. I know I could leverage the properties I have and get more properties, and I could keep rolling. But the only thing that would drive that is me being like, I want tons of money. And I'm like, I just don't want tons more money. And it's more work. But it's like, if I had that drive, like, I've done it enough now to know that I'm like, I could keep it going.
Right.
It would be work. I'm not saying these people they're people who work. Entrepreneurs are people who are like, they're working.
Yeah.
And it would be that, but the drive is like more is what would keep you going. And if I had 20 rental units and I had people going around managing them, you'd be like, okay, yeah, now you're an entrepreneur. But the difference is I'm just like, I don't want to have tons of money. I just want to have the option of freedom when I get older. That's all I want.
Yeah.
So I stop,
Yeah.
So
No,
I
I
feel
get it.
like,
Like,
I don't
you're not looking to make it self-sustaining. Like, the next natural step for you would be to hire a property manager and someone to fill them, and then for you to be barely intervening except for major decisions, right?
Yeah,
like,
I just
that's
throw
where
my
this
money around
that's
and
where
buy
this path
new
goes.
properties.
This
But
path
see-
goes that you have 50 rental properties and people are running it for you, and you just get written fat checks, and everyone else gets to have a job, and tenants get to have a thing, and you basically
A job
business.
creator.
Yeah.
But
Captain
my
industry.
impression, based on what you'd said before, was that you were tapped out. Like that's why you didn't get more properties.
Well,
that you
tapped
just were
out because
so,
I'm
so
like,
you couldn't take on more risk or whatever.
I could take on more risk. I know how
Yeah.
to do it, and I could totally leverage more. And part of it's also like, you get investors, and like, you borrow money from like whoever you can, family, friends, the bank, and you can keep it as long as you pay the returns, which I have, because I've borrowed lots of money. I pay the returns.
Hear that, lenders?
Yeah, well, the lenders are making money off of me. It's all going around, and so the thing is, once you have that trust, then they'll lend you more money. So like, I could keep borrowing, and I know I could make the payments, but I'm like, I just don't want to have this freaking giant empire of like, just for what? So I could have like a giant boat and an
'cause then you
expensive
could-
car. I'm like, and I don't want that.
What
stuff.
about that life goal you told me about many years ago of owning an island and
What are you
having?
talking about?
For sure.
No,
that's
don't be
a
shy.
It
I know we're
sounds-
on the show.
It sounds true too.
And you wanted basically you wanted the island so you could see for yourself what it was like to hunt man, and that was your big. I mean,
Don't make rumors about me.
that's like a Bond villain thing to do, but it's like it's literally, I'm sure, some rich person's entrepreneurial reason.
But
is
but
to-
my Bo, in defense of you, you're like, oh, I wonder what it's like to be an entrepreneur. You're like essentially, okay. So you've got multiple podcasts, some of which would have patron money coming in. You do sound design and all this sort of stuff. I literally asked to buy like sound.
it's not. I don't. It doesn't.
No. I'm just wait for.
Okay.
So let's just imagine for a second that you call yourself like BS Studios. And you've got sound BS Studios, sound design, web design, podcasting, or whatever, and then you're tying in your existing revenue streams, adding a little bit more, and this is your thing. You're like, I'm not saying you're an entrepreneur like in the traditional sense right off the gate, but you're like flirting pretty close, is what I mean? Like you're working on a bunch of projects. There's just not that umbrella necessarily.
and just to jump in
it
on
was
this
my
thing
turn
before.
to talk, but Crofton made me wait, so you don't get to jump in.
Oh yeah,
For fuck's sake.
go ahead. It was to add to that.
He's like, no, wait, I'll be quick. And then 10 minutes later, he's still talking. So I consider what I would do, like their projects and their creative projects and partnership with people, but they fall more in the realm of self-employment. Like, if I'm not doing it, then it doesn't get done. It's like if Tom Cruise doesn't appear in the movie, Tom Cruise can't run a business where he hires other Tom Cruises to appear in films for him and make him money. Like, he's still the talent. It's still an employment of talent. And I don't think it falls under entrepreneurship, even though, celebrities, I'm sure, conduct all kinds of projects under their purview all the time, and that might be considered entrepreneurship. But I would consider
Scott Johnson an entrepreneur?
I don't know. Like,
or is he self-employed?
Yeah,
I would say
I would say he's
I would
self-employed.
say he's an entrepreneur. That's
I
what
would say he's self-employed. If he's not on his shows, he's not making money. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a business to doing this, but owning a business or running a business does not necessarily make you an entrepreneur.
Back. This is full circle. Back to what we were originally talking about.
Because entrepreneur to me is the identification of a need and the process through which to find a solution to fill that need. And it might be that you're integral to it, I suppose, but to me it's more the system and less your actual intervention. Like, I think in this equation, it's egotistical to be like, I invented McDonald's and I'm the only person capable of working at a McDonald's. If I don't work at McDonald's, McDonald's fails. It's like, no, any schlub can work at McDonald's. It's like, an entrepreneur identifies a thing, makes it, and then can leave it be. That's like my sense of it. So,
for the listeners' benefit, Bo worked at McDonald's.
That's true. I mean, I'm a schlub everywhere I've worked. Like, I've never. That's why I say I've never had a business or a project where if I wasn't involved, it would fall apart. And like, yes, like Mike, you're involved, but very minimally. And like, to me, the goal of entrepreneurship is to give it. You don't give it back to the people, but in a way you do. Like, think of like any of the companies right now. If any of their CEOs or executives left, they'd still run. If their top talent left at Disney Studios, they'd still be putting out movies. Like to me, the business is capable of running without you, essentially, and that's what you're building.
Potentially, but it dies slowly. Disney had a dark period before they had their new CEO. They're not new CEO, but their CEO in the 90s. That his name escapes me, Bob something, whatever. That led to like the Disney Renaissance and all that sort of stuff. And now they're new. Like, when Steve Jobs passed away and Tim, what's his face, Cook, I think, started out, like Apple stuff took it. Like, it dies slowly. They're still, even in these giant organizations,
maybe, but they could always find a new champion. I mean, that's up to the organization. No one lives forever, but a business can go on for hundreds of years. Like, how long has the New York Times been running? I'm sure they've seen their share.
Probably 500 years.
They've seen their share of change of leadership. They've had good years and bad years, but ultimately, people need the news, and they're still trying to survive. And now they're trying to weather the internet. But you know what? Like, that's how this works. To me, that's how entrepreneurship works. Is like, it might be yours, and you might be integral to it, but at the end of the day, it can't run without you. Because
but I think the entrepreneur is the person who builds up the company that then becomes that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what makes because the New York Times is no longer there's no longer an entrepreneur in there.
Like Tom New York, who made the first paper by himself, he was like, no one else can work here. If Tom New York doesn't work here, this journalism's out the he's like, he died and people still wanted the New York Times.
Whereas like Mr. Bronx Paper, who lived down the street but never hired any reporters or got anyone else, it never went on. But
what's the shitty one? It's Bob's Son and the freaking Bob's Son newspapers with the Sunshine Girl. He just wanted an excuse to see naked ladies. He started his whole newspaper empire just to see them.
Based on it.
I want an excuse to see verdicts. That's all I want.
Yeah, let's do verdicts.
Oh my god. That was a 10 on 10 segue. It was so good, I'm like shocked. Alright, let's get the verdicts.
I said, order in the court.
Order in the court.
I'll go.
Okay.
I guess I know what I'm going to say. This one is kind of obvious to me, which is there's a certain odor in the air, a je ne sais quoi of smelly bullshit. That's what I think.
Okay. Can you clarify?
That's to me what this is, and the part of me who is anti-capitalist, which is a large part of me, wants to just say it's kind of bad, but it's clearly not all bad. There is innovation comes out of entrepreneurship, new opportunities arise, A lot of it, though, is just someone being like, I need to get rich. I want to drive a Porsche. I want all the superficial bullshit in life for me, and I don't give a shit about no one else. I'll make a buck, and I don't care who I got to roll over to get there. That's part of entrepreneurship, too, and that's bad. There's a lot of bad in entrepreneurship. So I feel like the obvious verdict is down the middle. It's bullshit. It's too much of a big mess to tease it all apart. So that's the perfect verdict for entrepreneurship. There, short and sweet.
All right. I'm up next since I'm the outro man. Entrepreneurship. I feel like the things I said on it were probably the best this episode. Just because I feel like I have it under control, which is what I'm going to base my verdict on. Even though you guys had good things to say, I was just like, it's really just that to me, that effort to finding that pathway to a system, and I think people who do it like doing that. Anyways, and maybe they have, because of their background, they have a unique insight and find a solution where others couldn't see it. But and I think that's a good thing. I think like if there are ways like we can solve climate change in some way that we can't see yet, and it takes an entrepreneur to change the way society functions in a way that we take for granted, then that person's got to be important. That's got to be an important function. If the word we give to it is entrepreneurship, then I have to say that that's good. Entrepreneurship is good. And, you know, capitalism stuff aside, I don't really feel like capitalism's on trial today and the unending quest for profit in a disgusting way, but definitely being a problem solver is a good thing. So
it's just it's so funny that you use that example because
All right, it's my turn.
because it's like,
Silos.
you're like, if
Silos.
if an entrepreneur
My-
solves
my
climate
turn.
change, it'll be
No.
great. But
You don't
they
get to
also
comment
made
on
it-
most verdict. It's-
Oh yeah, right. It happens all the time
you
later.
can do it later at the end. You can give me shit for what you want. Just
Yeah.
like Crofton
turn.
give his verdict.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, not
So-
entrepreneurial of you to not see your opportunity.
Silos. Entrepreneurship is bullshit. And there's some good entrepreneurs and there's some bad entrepreneurs. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Oh my God. Are you kidding?
No, I mean,
Wow.
like we talked about it ad nauseum. You
Yeah.
guys both made very good, very good points.
All right.
But like Mike and I were going sort of back and forth on who is an entrepreneur, who is not, or whatever. But really, it doesn't make that much of a difference. It's wherever you want to draw your line in the sand. For me, it's just that like you're right, Bo. There's innovators, there's great thinkers, and then Mike's right. There's complete total douchebags who just want money. So like this is a category in which the bullshit label is very apt, and I don't think it requires further study than that. But it's definitely one of those arguments you can easily argue good and you can easily argue bad and cherry pick who you're talking about. But in the end, if you look at all of them,
I think
you just
that's
got to
fair.
say it's bullshit.
And that's why I had to jump in on both, because he was like, "Hey, if an entrepreneur solves climate change, great." It's like, but what about all the entrepreneurs who made climate change? What about them, though? You're like, but what
Well,
about
they
Mike's
they were solving other problems of their times.
No, they
probably.
weren't.
Look,
No, they
look,
weren't.
a car. The first day that motorized vehicles came into existence was a glorious day, when the reality that everyone could have one. They could not have foreseen at that time. They were arrogant, as humans always are, about everything they come up with about the long-term impacts. And that's just part of it. I know it's not just cars, but
Anyways,
cars are a
whatever.
contributor.
You say good for everything.
And
I
listen,
don't know what.
you ask anybody living today, give up your car. They will fucking deck you right in the face. I take the bus as a bus driver. I look at all the entitled people in their goddamn cars, and I'm just like, they're all sitting there in their cars complaining about climate change in their disgusting cars. Yes, I know I don't have a car because I'm lazy, but that doesn't. I'm still taking the moral high ground here, and just be like, fuck.
But then
Yeah,
why
the
did you say
recycle
entrepreneurs
folks.
are good? You just started this thing by
Because-
saying the
no,
car. All these lazy
No,
assholes.
wait, you're missing the point. It's that they solved a problem. At the time cars were invented, climate change was not a problem, and this was a blessing. Now it's not a blessing because we're, and humans are arrogant like that and short-sighted. But it's
And
still
See
good.
this is my own blood.
Ugh.
Oh,
How about
okay.
that?
Anyways, if you want
That's
to
a
send,
problem we don't need to
if you
solve.
want to send Crofton your blood, and trust me, I'll forward it to him.
I'm bleeding out here, fuckers.
Or if you want to send him some bandages, email bandages, you can send them to goodbadbull@gmail.com along with your opinions on entrepreneurship. And we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear what you'd have to say. We do read emails on the show. We don't get many of them, so if you do send one in, it'd be very special. So please do it. And if this hasn't been creepy enough, well, visit our website, goodbadbull.com, and there you can find out more about us and our show. You can subscribe. You can like us on Twitter and Facebook, because people love social media. Most of us, anyways. Maybe not you, but some of us do. And you can subscribe to the show, which is really the most important thing, ultimately. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the people who back us on patreon.com, help pay our server costs and give us a little extra something in our bank accounts. Not really, but we're getting there. But we do appreciate the support of all of our listeners. Without you, we'd have nothing.
Except our gold teeth.
Right, except yeah, you shouldn't talk about gold teeth on the show.
You
Nobody's
rich
gonna give us
smug
money.
bastard.
We're gonna get an email saying, "Why don't you sell that gold tooth and pay for your server costs for 10 years, you rich bastard?" Yeah. Anyways,
Feels
all right. You can find me on Twitter at Bo Schwartz, and swing on by therewillbedungeons.com and check out the D&D show I do. Just as a little plug, I think you'll enjoy it. Crofton, if our listeners want to find out more about you, where can they do it?
They can follow me and all my personal sort of hygiene stories about my blood or my teeth or whatever. I'm a bit of an entrepreneur on the Twitter at Crofton Steers.
All right. And Michael, if our listeners want to find out more about you.
Yes, I also say if you want to see Crofton's entrepreneurial spirit, follow his Twitter feed. You'll be shocked he's not a billionaire already. And my
Like and subscribe.
my very unentrepreneurial Twitter is at ML Hodgins.
Cool. Well, that's cool, everyone. Thanks for hanging out on another great show where we gave some great verdicts. I realized I was going to do this earlier in the show, but then I completely forgot. But I'm trying to be more of a smooth. Welcome to Good, Bad, or Bullshit Radio. Today we're going to be discussing entrepreneurship. Is it really all it's cracked up to be?
No.
I'll try for next episode. To be more soft-spoken and radio-like.
Just be yourself, Bo.
Yeah.
I keep running my tongue over the gold tooth, and it feels so amazing.
It tastes better than anything I've ever eaten.
It's just so smooth.
Yeah. All right. Well, good show.
You
everyone.
guys can't see it's in the back of my mouth.
That's. I mean, this is probably one of the worst outros we've ever done. Crofton is just like talking about his gold tooth, and I'm just rambling. So,
well,
this is the music going up. The music.
About time.
One day somebody is going to develop some sort of entrepreneur-esque software for pinpointing the exact moment shows need to end and inserting some sort of post clip.
We could do that. We could do that.
It would just be like...
We just
it
need
would have
consensus.
too much.
We need consensus, and it would save me time. But,
Sounds like
we could
you
say,
need to
I
have
can
more
say,
entrepreneurial
my name
spirit.
is Bo, and for Crofton and Michael, signing off. Thanks for listening.
Signing
Goodbye.
No, that's too boring.
It's like developing a side business where you just listen to other people's shitty podcasts and find the stingers and then put them at the end or at the beginning. That could be a business for you, Bo.
No. No. There's a need for it, but no. There's no. There's a need for podcast music intros. There's a reason there's a need, because nobody wants to spend the money it costs to pay
No,
for it.
people don't want to spend money for it. It's the same with anything.
Where would I buy it? I can buy it from somewhere other than Bo?
Contact a musician and ask them to give you a quote.
Okay, hey, Bo, can you give me a quote?
It's like $1,000.
What?
It costs money to actually get professional music. I'm not working for $50 fucking dollars.
Good for you, Bo. You should charge him $1,000. He's got a fucking gold.
And I hope
tooth.
nobody's listening in here who's ever contacted me. I've gotten contacted a lot about stuff for this, and
Actually,
I've
you know what?
wanted to do it, but I don't have time. So for it to be worth it, I Googled how much does it take to write a jingle, and it's on the order of thousands. You want a piece of 30, 40-second piece of music? It's not cheap. And that's why podcast music sucks, because people who make podcasts don't want to spend the money it takes to pay professionals.
No, they don't. But I bet you would do it for a gold tooth. Come on, Crofton.
Oh, God. It hurts so much.
Now, there are places you can get, like, okay-ish music for free that serve, but the problem is, in your heart of hearts, you know it's not special because you know it's not unique to you.
No, and,
you know?
and
so
that's like the problem. It's funny because like that's like the problem right there with like entrepreneurial ship. It's like, you know, Bo's a talented musician. Crofton's like, I want a music. Bo's like, it takes a lot of work. It's hard to make music. And Crofton's like, I don't want to pay. There's someone out there who's like, people don't give a shit about quality stuff. Here's 1 million songs that are shitty and just put it up there. And Crofton's like, yeah, I want that. Here's $2. And that guy's like, I'm rich. And then what he does is soulless. And it's got no heart, but you know it solves a problem you have, which is lack of talent, by the way.
But Bo does like these jingles every 2 weeks for Core, so I'm figuring like just make one of them for me, and I'll give him money.
I change a few lines, and I've made my workflow efficient with it. It's not the nice thing about that is I can make it sound like it's a ton of work, but it doesn't take me that long anymore because I've been doing it for a while now. So.
I think it'd be really funny if I just took like the sound from the opening from EXM and put it into a parenting podcast and then nothing to do with. I'm like, hey, fucking Bo, I'm just gonna.
Is it a Gamers In parenting podcast, or is it just is it a fresh start on a show, or is it a Gamers In deal?
I think it'll be a Gamers In deal, but I'm not 100% sure.
The Gamers In presents not having enough time to playing games. That's what you should call it. It's like just. We used to play games.
I think that exists actually. That kind of show already exists.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of like Married to the Games, and there's a bunch of these podcasts for people getting old. But whatever, there's always going to be room for more podcasts.
I mean, that's not like we see a need out there. There's not enough audio content for people to listen to.
There's not enough. Yeah, that's
right.
right.
Not even close. All right, guys. I would say
actually this show is the most egregious offender of saturation and surplus. In that it's when we sat down to do the show, we didn't say what do the people need and what kind of need can we fill it. Everyone's like, we want to do a show. We don't want to do any work for it. How can we make the show happen? We literally feel like no need, and it's self-indulgent. And we enjoy it, but it is.
I think you're selling a shirt.
No,
that
was the conversation we had. It's not.
That was the conversation. That conversation Crofton had, who was adamant that there was no work involved.
I'm aware, Michael, that you would put in more work on a topic you'd want.
He does. I wanted to do research, and I like having conversations with you guys, and I feel like that's what it was based on.
Yeah. No, I think if
I'm glad I won that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that time, we had never done a single thing, so you know, and I was just like willing to compromise to just do a show with you guys. Which meant
when we were young and hopeful of the future.
And Bo didn't have 10 other shows.
Our first episode was about, like, of all topics, suntanning. Remember suntanning?
Dog ownership? Which one was first?
That was
second.
early too. It was suntanning was the first one, and like really, I mean, if you were to ask, someone asked me, is like, we're gonna do a show and our first topic might be suntanning. You want to be on it? Be like. Pass. Fuck no! I have nothing to say about suntan.
Whatever.
You know, it's funny. It's just funny. It's funny to think about, and that's why I'm thinking about it. So.
It is funny.
All right, bye live stream. No, we're not. Bye. Twitch. Wicked Kitten, thank you so much for hanging out.
Thanks, Monica, for hanging out.
Shaper,
Hi, Monica.
See you there.
Hope all is well.
Yep, and congrats on your emote. I see you have a Twitch emote, and it looks good. All right. Dun, 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 dun.